Standing in the bridal suite, I found myself staring at my phone as a message from my mother popped up. "Honey, we're so sorry, but Taylor's beach trip came up suddenly and she really needs us there. You understand, right? You've always been the independent one." Tears welled in my eyes, blurring my vision just as my wedding coordinator knocked gently on the door, announcing that it was time. There would be no father to walk me down the aisle, no mother to adjust my veil. Just me, Ariana Wilson, on the brink of marrying the love of my life, while my family chose my little sister's vacation over my wedding. I suppose I should have anticipated this. Growing up as the eldest daughter in the Wilson family had always felt like a shadow cast by my younger sister, Taylor, from the moment she entered the world. Where I was practical and responsible, Taylor was spontaneous and effortlessly charming. My accomplishments were met with nods of approval, while hers were celebrated with joy. When I achieved straight A's in high school, my parents acknowledged my hard work with a smile. Yet when Taylor managed to scrape together a B-, they took her out for ice cream. I told myself repeatedly that this was simply how it was. Taylor needed more attention. I learned to be self-sufficient from an early age. While other children had parents cheering them on at school plays and soccer games, mine were often at Taylor's dance recitals or assisting her with projects. I drove myself to college, handled my own financial aid forms, and moved into my dorm without assistance. Meanwhile, my parents took 2 weeks off work to help Taylor transition into her freshman year at a college merely 30 minutes from our home. Regardless of everything, I kept the relationship with my family alive. Weekly phone calls with Mom, holiday visits, and the occasional dinner when our schedules finally aligned. I held on to the hope that one day my family would truly see me, recognize my worth, and grant me even a fraction of the attention they so freely bestowed upon my sister. Then, everything changed when I met Jackson Andrews at a graphic design conference in Chicago. He was tall, with warm hazel eyes, and a laugh that had a way of brightening the mood for everyone around him. Jackson noticed me right away. Not just noticed, but he valued my thoughts, listened intently, and made me feel like the most significant person in the room. What began as 6 months of dating blossomed into a year, and on our anniversary, he proposed to me on the serene shore of Lake Michigan. "You're everything I've ever wanted," he said, kneeling before me. "I want to build a life with you, Ariana." When I called my parents to share the joyous news, my mother's first response was, "Oh, that's nice, honey. Did you hear Taylor got promoted at her job?" Even after 6 months of this, I persevered. I longed for my family to be present at my wedding, to fulfill the dream of my father walking me down the aisle, my mother assisting me with preparations. So I invited them into the planning process, sending them venue options and soliciting their opinions on flowers and music. "Whatever you think is best, honey," my mother would say, only to swiftly pivot to discussing Taylor's latest adventure or achievement. Jackson noticed their lack of enthusiasm, but did his best to shield me from the sting of it. His own parents were wonderfully supportive, his mother accompanying me for dress shopping, his father offering valuable advice about vendors. "My family will be your family now," Jackson's mother said, squeezing my hand as I tried on wedding gowns. "But I'm sure your parents will come around. It's their daughter's wedding, after all." 2 weeks before the wedding, everything seemed to be falling into place. The venue was confirmed, flowers ordered, and the menu finalized. Then, Taylor called our parents with exciting news. "Guys, you won't believe it. Marcy's parents offered us their beach house in the Outer Banks. It's super last minute, but we have to go next weekend. It's the only time everyone can make it." Next weekend? My wedding weekend! I learned about this not from Taylor or my parents, but through a family group chat where Taylor excitedly shared photos of the beach house, tagging our parents in her message, expressing her enthusiasm for their trip together. Confused and hurt, I called my mother. "Mom, what's this about a beach trip? You know my wedding is next weekend, right?" "Oh, honey," she sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. Taylor's been under so much stress with her job. She really needs this break, and her friends invited us too. We'll try our best to be back in time. I promise. Try, Mom? It's my wedding. I need you there. Dad is supposed to walk me down the aisle. Ariana, you've always been so independent. You've got everything under control. Taylor needs us right now. I ended the call feeling numb, grappling with disbelief. Surely they wouldn't actually miss my wedding for a beach trip. They would come to their senses. The night before my wedding, as I sat with Jackson's family at the rehearsal dinner, my father finally called. "Princess," he said, using a nickname he hadn't used in years. "I hate to do this, but we won't make it tomorrow. Taylor's friend had car trouble, so we got a late start. We're still in North Carolina, and there's just no way to get back in time." My hand trembled as I held the phone. "You're choosing a beach trip over my wedding day?" "It's not like that. Taylor was counting on this trip." "She's been having such a hard time lately. You're getting married. You'll be fine. You have Jackson now." The rehearsal dinner went on around me, but I barely registered it. Jackson found me on the terrace, where I stood staring blankly at the sunset. "They're not coming," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "They chose Taylor's beach trip over our wedding." Jackson pulled me close, his anger simmering just beneath the surface of his concern. "Then it's their loss. Tomorrow is still going to be beautiful because we'll be together. And I promise you, Ariana, I will never make you feel second best." As I tried to drift off to sleep that night in our hotel room, my phone pinged with a message from my mother. "Honey, we're so sorry, but Taylor's beach trip came up suddenly, and she really needs us there. You understand, right? You've always been the independent one." It was the final confirmation of what I had always known but tried to deny in my family's eyes. I would always come second. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and beautiful, yet I felt a hollow ache in my chest. My bridesmaids bustled around the suite, arranging my veil, touching up my makeup, and carefully avoiding any mention of my parents' absence. My best friend Madison took charge, appointing herself my protector for the day. "You look stunning," she said, adjusting my necklace. "Jackson is going to lose his mind when he sees you." "My dad should be here," I whispered, fighting back tears. "My mom should be helping me get ready." Madison squeezed my shoulders gently. "I know, sweetie, but today is still your day. Don't let their choices steal your joy." Outside in the hallway, I heard a gentle knock. Jackson's father, Robert, stood there looking dapper in his tuxedo, his eyes crinkling with kindness. "Ariana," he said softly. "I know I'm not your father, but if you'd allow me, I'd be honored to walk you down the aisle." The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice trembling. "I would love that." The ceremony unfolded beautifully, despite everything that had happened. When Jackson saw me walking toward him, his face lit up, and for a moment, the world around us faded away. His parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride, while the empty seats beside them served as a glaring reminder of my parents' choice. As we moved through the reception, I overheard whispers from the guests. Where are her parents? I caught snippets of conversation. They went to a beach instead. The poor thing. Jackson stayed close, his hand always finding mine, his eyes scanning my face to ensure I was okay. His mother, Eleanor, stepped in beautifully for the mother-daughter moments, helping me bustle my dress and standing in for the traditional dances. "Your family now," she whispered, as we swayed on the dance floor during what should have been my dance with my father. And family shows up. Later that night, as Jackson and I collapsed into our hotel suite, exhaustion and emotion finally caught up with me. I can't believe they missed our wedding for a beach trip. I said. "Who does that?" Jackson pulled me close. "People who don't deserve you, that's who. But I'm here and I see you. I will always see you." The next morning, we left for our honeymoon, a 10-day trip to the coast of Maine. I tried to push thoughts of my family aside, focusing instead on the beauty surrounding us: lighthouse tours, seaside dinners, and walks along rocky beaches. Jackson was attentive and loving, doing everything he could to make our time together special. But the pain lingered, sharpening every time I checked my phone, only to find no apologetic messages from my parents, no acknowledgement of what they had done. Instead, my social media feeds overflowed with photos of Taylor and my parents laughing on the beach, building sandcastles, and toasting with cocktails. "Look at this," I said to Jackson one evening, showing him a photo my mother had posted of Taylor perched on her shoulders in the ocean. The caption read, "Nothing beats quality time with my baby girl." Jackson frowned. "Maybe you should mute them for a while. Give yourself some space to heal." I ignored his suggestion. "They haven't even asked how the wedding went. It's like it didn't even happen." When we returned home, a small package awaited us from my parents. Inside was a generic wedding card accompanied by a check for $500 and a handwritten note. "Hope you had a lovely day. Sorry we couldn't make it. Taylor's trip was so restorative for her." There was no mention of missing their daughter's wedding, no real apology, just another reminder that Taylor's needs would always come first. I tried calling them, yearning for some acknowledgement of how hurtful their actions had been. My mother answered cheerfully, "Ariana, how was the honeymoon? We just got back from the beach too. Taylor had such a wonderful time. She really needed that break." "Mom," I interrupted, my voice trembling, "you missed my wedding day. Dad didn't walk me down the aisle. You weren't there to help me get ready. And all you can talk about is how Taylor enjoyed her vacation?" There was a brief pause before my mother's tone turned defensive. "Now, Ariana, you know Taylor has been going through a rough patch. She needed family support. Your wedding was all planned out." "You didn't really need us there. You didn't need us, did you? You're my parents. Of course I needed you there." "You've always been so independent," my mother replied, her voice adopting the patient tone one might use with a difficult child. "And you had Jackson and his family. Taylor only had us." The conversation spiraled in circles, with my parents minimizing my feelings and repeatedly redirecting the focus back to Taylor. Eventually, my father came on the line. "Ariana, you need to stop being so selfish," he said firmly. "You've always been jealous of the attention we give Taylor. She's more sensitive than you and needs more support. You got your wedding, didn't you? Why are you making such a big deal about us missing one day?" I was left speechless. One day, the most important day of my life, and they dismissed it as just one day. But the final blow came a week later when I discovered through a bank notification that my parents had withdrawn $3,000, money they had initially promised toward our wedding, the day before Taylor's beach trip. $3,000 that could have gone toward our venue or catering had instead funded my sister's vacation. When I confronted them, my mother actually laughed. "Oh, honey, Taylor needed that trip. Your wedding was already paid for." That night, I sobbed in Jackson's arms. How can they not see how much they've hurt me? How can they keep defending their choices? Jackson held me close. "Maybe it's time to create some distance, Ariana. Sometimes loving people from afar is the only way to protect yourself." Looking up at him through my tears, I realized he was right. For years, I had chased approval I would never receive, making excuses for behavior that repeatedly broke my heart. Maybe it was finally time to stop. The months following our wedding became a period of painful growth. On Jackson's recommendation, I began seeing a therapist, Dr. Lorraine Bennett, who specialized in family trauma. What your parents did was objectively hurtful, Dr. Bennett said during one of our early sessions. Missing your wedding for a sibling's vacation is not normal or acceptable behavior. Her validation felt like oxygen after years of feeling as though I was drowning. For so long, I had internalized my family's narrative that I was too sensitive or always jealous of Taylor. Hearing someone confirm that my pain was legitimate helped me begin to heal. With Dr. Bennett's guidance, I started to establish boundaries with my family. I limited phone calls to once every 2 weeks instead of my usual weekly check-ins. I muted their social media accounts to avoid the relentless stream of Taylor-centric posts. When they asked for favors, surprisingly frequent now that I was paying attention, I learned to say no without feeling guilty. My parents noticed the change immediately and pushed back hard. "Why are you being so difficult lately?" my mother demanded during one of our phone calls. "Is this still about the wedding? You need to get over that and move on. We're family." "I am moving on," I replied calmly, using the scripts Dr. Bennett had helped me prepare. Part of that means being honest about my feelings and needs. You hurt me deeply, and I need time. "This isn't like you, Ariana," my father chimed in. "You've always been our rock. Taylor says you've been cold to her too." "I'm not being cold. I'm being honest about where I am right now." These conversations were exhausting, yet with each one I felt stronger, more certain of my worth and my right to protect myself. Meanwhile, Jackson and I settled into our married life with joy. We established our own traditions: Sunday morning pancakes, evening walks around our neighborhood, and weekend trips to explore nearby towns. His parents visited regularly, bringing homemade treats and a genuine interest in our lives. "This is what family should feel like," I told Jackson one evening as we waved goodbye to his parents after dinner. Supportive, loving, present. Jackson's career as a software developer was flourishing. When he was offered a promotion that required relocating from Indianapolis to Denver, we decided to embrace the opportunity. The move would mean more distance from my family, which felt like a welcome benefit, along with exciting new possibilities for both of us. I could continue my graphic design work remotely, and Denver boasted a thriving creative community that I was eager to join. We found a charming 2-bedroom house with stunning mountain views and immersed ourselves in making it our home. Just as I was beginning to feel settled, the news arrived exactly 6 months after our wedding. "Ariana, you won't believe it," my mother gushed over the phone. "Taylor got engaged last night. Isn't that wonderful?" Taylor and her boyfriend Nate had been dating for only 3 months. They had met at a work function and embarked on a whirlwind romance that, according to my mother, was just like a fairy tale. "That's very fast," I said carefully. "When it's right, you just know," my mother replied dismissively. "We're already looking at venues. Taylor wants a summer wedding, so we only have 4 months to plan everything." 4 months to plan what my mother was already dubbing the wedding of the century. This was in stark contrast to the 1.5 years Jackson and I had spent planning our simple ceremony. Within days, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from a new family group chat titled Taylor's Dream Wedding. My parents shared links to extravagant venues, renowned designers, and caterers, accompanied by comments like, "Only the best for our baby girl," and "No expense spared for Taylor's special day." I watched in disbelief as my parents put down deposits on venues that cost more than our entire wedding budget. They hired a celebrated wedding planner and began shopping for a dress with a 5-figure price tag. "How are they affording this?" I asked Jackson as we scrolled through photos of the luxury mountain resort they had booked for the ceremony. The answer came unexpectedly during a rare phone call with my father, who sounded unusually subdued. "We took out a second mortgage," he admitted when I pressed him about their sudden lavish spending. "But it's worth it for Taylor's happiness. This is her one big day." I bit back the obvious retort that my wedding had also been a significant day they had skipped entirely. Instead, "Are you sure that's financially wise, Dad?" "Don't you start too?" he snapped. "Your mother already has concerns, but Taylor deserves her dream wedding, and we're going to make it happen." The situation grew even more uncomfortable when Taylor called to demand that I be her maid of honor. "We haven't spoken more than twice since you missed my wedding," I pointed out. "That's ancient history," Taylor dismissed. "This is about my wedding now." "Mom says you're still being difficult about that whole beach trip thing, but I need you to get over it. Sisters should support each other." Before I could respond, she continued, "By the way, we're having the engagement party on the weekend of your birthday. I know it's last minute, but you'll need to fly in from Denver. Mom and Dad will cover your flight." My birthday weekend. When I told her I couldn't attend due to prior commitments, the family erupted. My phone filled with frantic texts from my parents. "Taylor is heartbroken. You won't be at her engagement party. After everything we've done for you, you can't do this one thing for your sister. Family should come first, Ariana." I showed the messages to Dr. Bennett during our next video session. "After everything they've done for you," she repeated thoughtfully. "What exactly do they think they've done for you that creates this obligation?" It was a perspective I had never considered before. What had they truly done for me recently? They had missed my wedding, failed to apologize, and now expected me to rearrange my life for Taylor's celebration. But the most painful revelation came 2 weeks later, when Taylor sent a photo of her chosen wedding venue, the exact same garden estate where Jackson and I had been married. "Great minds think alike," she texted, "but we're getting the premium package with the fountain terrace and the extended cocktail hour. Mom thought your reception felt a little rushed." I stared at my phone in disbelief. It wasn't enough that they had missed my wedding. Now they were recreating it for Taylor. Only better. When I didn't immediately respond with enthusiasm, Taylor called, her voice sharp with annoyance. "What's your problem now?" "I thought you'd be happy we picked your venue. Now you can relive your wedding day, but actually have Mom and Dad there this time." That comment cut deeper than anything else. They saw nothing wrong with missing my wedding because in their minds, Taylor's would be the true family celebration. I hung up without responding, tears streaming down my face. Jackson found me curled up on our couch, clutching my phone tightly. "What happened?" he asked, sitting beside me. Through my tears, I explained about the venue, showing him Taylor's message and recounting her cruel comment. Jackson's expression hardened. "That's it," he said firmly. "I've tried to be supportive of your relationship with your family because I know you love them, but they are hurting you repeatedly and deliberately. They missed our wedding for a beach trip, and now they're throwing an extravagant celebration for Taylor. No more." His protective anger ignited a spark within me. For far too long, I had accepted mere crumbs of affection from my family, while watching them lavish Taylor with the full feast of their love and attention. Perhaps it was finally time to stop setting myself up for more pain. That night, I drafted a careful email to my parents and Taylor, explaining that while I wished them all the best with the wedding planning, I would be stepping back from an active role. I would attend as a guest, but could not serve as maid of honor due to the distance and my work commitments. The response was explosive. My phone rang constantly for 2 days with calls I chose not to answer. The family group chat erupted with accusations of jealousy and selfishness. Taylor claimed I was trying to ruin her wedding because mine hadn't been good enough. My mother claimed I was breaking her heart with my childish grudge. Finally, I answered one of my father's calls. "Ariana Wilson," he began, using my full name as he had when I was in trouble as a child. "You will apologize to your sister and mother immediately and fulfill your duties as maid of honor. I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this behavior stops now." For the first time in my life, I didn't back down in the face of his anger. "No, Dad," I said firmly. "I won't be manipulated or guilted anymore. I'm happy for Taylor, but after you all missed my wedding for a beach trip, I find it hurtful that you're now planning an extravagant celebration at the same venue. I need some distance." "This isn't about your wedding," he exploded. "Why can't you let that go? Taylor needs you right now." "And I needed you on my wedding day," I replied quietly, "but you chose her beach trip instead." The call ended with my father threatening that I would regret my decision and warning that I was tearing the family apart. Yet, as I set down my phone, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. For the first time, I had stood my ground and spoken my truth without backing down. That evening, Madison called with disturbing news. "I don't know if I should tell you this," she began hesitantly, "but Taylor has been talking about you to anyone who will listen. She's telling people you're trying to sabotage her wedding because you're jealous of her relationship with your parents." I sighed, unsurprised, but still hurt. Let her talk. People who matter know the truth. As weeks passed, the wedding preparations continued without me. My parents stopped trying to convince me to be maid of honor, but increased their pressure for me to assist with planning. "Since you've done this before, we really need your input on the flowers," my mother would say. "Taylor is so overwhelmed. Or could you just call the DJ you used? Taylor likes the playlist you had." Each request came with the underlying implication that I owed this to them, that helping plan the wedding had somehow become my responsibility. Meanwhile, I learned through family friends that my parents had drained their retirement accounts in addition to taking out a second mortgage. Their determination to give Taylor her dream wedding was jeopardizing their financial future. Yet any mention of this concern was met with hostility. "We know what we're doing," my mother snapped when I gently suggested they might be overextending themselves. "Taylor only gets married once." The irony of this statement, considering they had missed their other daughter's once-in-a-lifetime wedding, seemed completely lost on her. As spring turned to summer, Taylor's wedding planning consumed my family entirely. The original budget had doubled, then tripled. My parents spoke of little else during our increasingly infrequent calls, and the family group chat buzzed constantly with updates, changes, and crisis management. "Taylor fired the florist yesterday," my mother reported during one call. "The sample arrangements weren't vibrant enough. Now we're scrambling to find someone new who can work with our timeline." I made sympathetic noises while recalling how I had arranged my own wedding flowers with friends the day before my ceremony, creating simple yet beautiful centerpieces that fit our budget. The most surreal aspect was watching Taylor systematically copy elements of my wedding while insisting hers would be superior. She chose a dress that echoed mine, but with more intricate beading. She selected a similar menu, only with premium options. She even hired the same photographer, but booked them for double the hours. "Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery," Jackson remarked dryly when I showed him Taylor's latest wedding plans. However, the copying took a darker turn when Taylor scheduled her bridal shower at the same restaurant where Jackson and I had held our rehearsal dinner, on what would have been our first anniversary weekend. "You'll need to change any plans you have that weekend," my mother informed me. "Everyone is expecting you to attend." "Mom, that's our anniversary. We already have plans." "Surely you can celebrate your anniversary another time," she dismissed. "This is Taylor's only bridal shower." The conversation quickly devolved from there, with my mother accusing me of being difficult and selfish. "I don't understand why you're making everything so complicated," she complained. "All we're asking is for you to show up and support your sister." "Like you showed up and supported me at my wedding." The words escaped before I could stop them. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. "I can't believe you're still throwing that in our faces," my mother said, her voice turning cold. "We've apologized for missing your wedding. Taylor needed us that weekend. When are you going to let it go?" But they hadn't truly apologized. They had expressed regret for being unable to attend, yet they had never acknowledged the pain their absence had caused or shown any understanding of why it had hurt so deeply. I declined the bridal shower invitation, sending a generous gift instead. This led to yet another round of angry calls and texts, including one from Taylor that simply read, "You've always been jealous of me, but I never thought you'd stoop this low." Madison, who still lived in Indianapolis and had reluctantly agreed to attend the shower as a courtesy to my family, reported back that it had been uncomfortably lavish. "Your parents spent a fortune," she said, describing the champagne fountain, custom dessert table, and professional photographer. And Taylor kept making these bizarre comments about how her celebrations were doing it right, unlike some people's rushed affairs. It was pretty obvious who she was targeting. But the most shocking revelation came when Madison forwarded me a photo from the event. In the background, displayed on an easel, was a large framed photograph of Taylor with my parents from their beach trip, the very trip they had chosen over attending my wedding. "They had it right by the entrance," Madison explained. "Taylor kept pointing it out to guests, saying it was from the best family vacation ever." I nearly walked out. "Ariana, it was so deliberately cruel," she added. I stared at the photo, a stark representation of their priorities. While I had been getting married without my family present, they had been building sandcastles with Taylor, creating memories they now proudly showcased. That night, I broke down completely. The accumulated pain of the past year, my parents' absence at my wedding, their excessive spending on Taylor's celebration, and the constant reminders that I would always come second became too much to bear. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed as Jackson held me close. "I can't keep subjecting myself to this treatment." "Then don't," he said simply. "You've given them so many chances, Ariana. At some point, you have to protect yourself." The next day, I composed an email to my parents explaining that I would be taking a complete break from communication for the foreseeable future. I expressed my love for them, but made it clear that their ongoing behavior was harmful and that I needed space to heal. I didn't anticipate what would happen next. Instead of respecting my request for distance, my parents escalated the situation dramatically. My father called my workplace repeatedly until my boss had to intervene and ask him to stop. My mother showed up at our Denver home unannounced one afternoon, having flown in specifically to talk sense into me. "This has gone far enough," she declared when I reluctantly let her in. "You're tearing this family apart during the most important time in Taylor's life." For 3 hours, she alternated between tears, guilt trips, and anger. She recounted every sacrifice they had supposedly made for me, bringing up every instance where they believed I had been difficult or ungrateful. The beach trip was mentioned repeatedly as something I should have understood and supported. "Taylor needed that time with us," my mother insisted for perhaps the 10th time. "You've always been able to handle things on your own." "That wasn't my choice, Mom," I finally said, feeling utterly exhausted. "I had to handle things on my own because you and Dad were always focused on Taylor. Do you know how many school events you missed? How many times I had to figure things out alone because you were busy with her?" My mother looked genuinely confused. "But you were always so capable." "I had to be. I didn't have a choice." The conversation went nowhere, with my mother unable or unwilling to see how their preferential treatment of Taylor had affected me. She left with a parting shot. "If you can't support your sister now, don't expect us to be there when you need us," she said. I nearly laughed at the absurdity of it all. "You already weren't there when I needed you most," I replied. After she left, I made the decision to change my phone number, block my family on social media, and ask friends not to share any information about me with them. It was a drastic step, but it felt necessary for my mental health. For a few weeks, there was a blessed silence. Jackson and I focused on our life in Denver, exploring our new city and building connections with neighbors and colleagues. I threw myself into my graphic design work, landing several new clients and beginning to establish a name for myself in the local creative community. Then, an unexpected call came from Taylor's fiancé, Nate. He had tracked down my work email and asked if we could talk. "I'm having serious doubts about the wedding," he confessed when I cautiously agreed to the phone conversation. Everything has spiraled out of control. Your parents have reorganized their house. Taylor changes her mind daily about what she wants, and there's constant drama. I'm starting to wonder if we should postpone until things calm down." I chose my words carefully, aware that anything I said could be twisted. Marriage is a big commitment, Nate. It's normal to have doubts, especially when the planning process becomes stressful. Maybe taking some time to think things through would be helpful. "That's just it," he continued. "I've tried to suggest scaling back or delaying, but Taylor gets hysterical at the mere suggestion. Your parents back her up completely. They act like canceling or postponing would be the end of the world. Maybe you and Taylor could benefit from some premarital counseling." I suggested that they consider premarital counseling to help navigate these feelings and pressures. It was an innocuous suggestion, one any reasonable person would view as helpful, but I had underestimated how desperately my family needed someone to blame for any problems. The next day, my email and work voicemail were inundated with messages from Taylor and my parents. Taylor accused me of trying to sabotage her relationship out of jealousy. My mother claimed I had deliberately poisoned Nate against the family. My father even threatened legal action for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Friends reported that Taylor was telling anyone who would listen that I had tried to convince Nate to leave her at the altar. The story grew more dramatic with each retelling, with some versions claiming I had revealed non-existent infidelities or financial problems to scare him away. 2 days later, the news broke. Nate had temporarily called off the engagement, citing the need for space to reconsider. My phone rang almost immediately with a call from my father's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Are you happy now? You've ruined your sister's life. She's devastated." "Dad, I didn't." "Don't lie to me. Nate told Taylor everything. How you said they weren't compatible, how you told him he was making a mistake. Your jealousy has gone too far this time, Ariana." I tried repeatedly to explain what had actually happened, but my father wasn't interested in the truth. In his mind, and undoubtedly in Taylor's and my mother's as well, I had deliberately sabotaged the wedding out of spite. The situation reached a breaking point when my parents and Taylor insisted on a family meeting to address the damage I had caused. Against Jackson's advice, I agreed to a video call, hoping to clear the air. It was a disaster from the very beginning. Taylor sobbed dramatically while my parents took turns berating me. When I attempted to clarify my actual conversation with Nate, Taylor screamed that I was lying. "You've always been jealous of me," she shouted. "You couldn't stand that Mom and Dad love me more, that they chose to be with me instead of at your stupid wedding. So you had to ruin mine too." The naked truth of her statement, "Mom and Dad love me more," hung heavily in the air. Neither of my parents contradicted her, nor seemed uncomfortable with her words. In that moment, something shifted deep within me. For years, I had been striving to earn equal love and attention from my parents, hoping they would eventually recognize me as deserving of the same care they lavished on Taylor. But as I looked at their faces on the screen, united in their anger toward me, I finally accepted what had always been true. I would never be their priority. "I think we're done here," I said quietly, and ended the call. 3 months before Taylor's rescheduled wedding date, my father experienced a health scare. It wasn't serious, just elevated blood pressure that led to dizziness and a brief hospital visit. But my mother used it as leverage to pull me back into the family orbit. "Your father's health is suffering because of this rift in the family," she said when I answered her call from the hospital number. "The doctor said stress is a major factor. He needs peace right now, Ariana. We all do." Despite everything, I still loved my parents. The thought of my father unwell stirred a complex mix of emotions: concern, guilt, and a deep-seated desire to make things right somehow. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" I asked cautiously. "Just be part of the family again," my mother replied, her voice softer than it had been in months. "Help with some of the wedding preparations to take the pressure off your father. Taylor and Nate have worked through their issues, and the wedding is back on. We need to put all this unpleasantness behind us." Against my better judgment, and despite Jackson's concerned warnings, I agreed to a tentative truce. I wouldn't be in the wedding party, but I would attend and assist with some planning tasks that could be managed remotely. The reconciliation felt fragile from the start. My parents were overly polite during our calls, as if they were speaking to a stranger they needed to appease. Taylor vacillated between cold distance and performative sisterly affection, sometimes sending cheerful messages about sister bonding, only to follow them up with passive-aggressive comments about my limited involvement. I maintained careful boundaries, agreeing only to tasks I could handle from Denver, reviewing vendor contracts, creating digital mock-ups of table arrangements, designing the wedding program. Each time I completed a task, I received tepid thanks, followed by requests for just one more thing. The situation with Nate remained awkward. He sent a brief email apologizing for any trouble caused, explaining that he and Taylor had worked through their issues with the help of her parents. The phrasing suggested he had accepted their version of events regarding my role in their temporary breakup. For a few weeks, things seemed to stabilize into an uneasy peace. Then Madison called with information that shattered the fragile truce. "I don't know how to tell you this," she began, her voice unusually serious. "But I was at my cousin's dinner party last weekend, and your Aunt Judy was there. My mother's sister Judy has always been close to our family. She and my mother spoke daily, and she had been heavily involved in Taylor's wedding planning. She was talking about you, Ariana," Madison said, her tone serious. "She mentioned how sad it was that you refused to help financially with Taylor's wedding, even though you have all that money from your husband's job. She claimed you told your parents that you wouldn't give a dime because you were still angry about them missing your wedding." I sat down, stunned. I never said that. They never even asked me for money. "That's not all," Madison continued reluctantly. "She said you tried to break up Taylor and Nate because you were jealous of their relationship, and that you've been spreading lies about your parents draining their retirement accounts for the wedding." The betrayal cut deep. Not only had my parents been trash-talking me to extended family, but they had been actively lying about me, painting me as petty and vindictive. More revelations followed as I reached out to other family members. My cousin Ryan revealed that my parents had told everyone I refused to be in the wedding because I was too self-centered. My grandmother called, concerned about the terrible things I had supposedly said about the family. It became clear that my parents and Taylor had been systematically turning our extended family against me, spreading lies to ensure I would be seen as the villain in their narrative. The final confirmation came when I discovered through social media that Taylor had scheduled her bachelorette party the same weekend as a major presentation I had been preparing for months. Taylor knew about it because I had mentioned it during one of our brief reconciliation calls. When I texted to ask if the date could be changed, Taylor's response was telling. "The world doesn't revolve around your schedule, Ariana. If you truly cared about family, you'd make it work." That evening, I compiled everything I had learned, screenshots of the lies my family had spread, evidence of the presentation date being set months in advance, and documentation of the original wedding dates they had missed. I sent it all to my parents with a simple message. "I tried to rebuild our relationship in good faith, but you've continued to manipulate and lie about me. I deserve better than this." My father called immediately, not to apologize, but to rage. "How dare you spy on us and collect evidence? This is exactly the problem. You're always looking for ways to make yourself the victim. Dad, you missed my wedding for a beach trip. You're spending your retirement on Taylor's extravagant wedding. You've lied to our entire family about me. These aren't things I'm imagining." He insisted, "We have our reasons for everything we've done. You've never understood how much Taylor needs our support. If you can't be a proper sister and daughter, maybe it's better if you don't attend the wedding at all." It felt like a relief to hear him say it, like a way to exit from the toxic cycle I had been trapped in for months. Maybe you're right, I agreed, surprising him into silence. Maybe it is better if I don't attend. After hanging up, I blocked their numbers again and sent a final email stating that I would not be attending the wedding. I wished them well, but explained that I needed to remove myself from a situation that was causing me continuous pain. The response was swift and dramatic. My mother left tearful voicemails on Jackson's phone since she could no longer reach mine. My father sent stern emails warning that I would regret abandoning the family. Taylor posted vague but pointed updates on social media about toxic people and learning who your real family is. Yet for the first time, their reactions didn't devastate me. I had finally accepted that I couldn't make them see me as worthy of the same love and consideration they bestowed upon Taylor. Their worldview was fixed. Taylor was the fragile one who needed protection, while I was expected to be endlessly understanding and self-sufficient. As Taylor's wedding date approached, the pressure intensified. Friends and family members I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly reached out, urging me toward reconciliation. "Your parents are heartbroken," my uncle wrote. "Whatever happened, surely you can set it aside for one day." These messages revealed how effectively my parents had controlled the narrative. No one seemed to know or care that they had missed my wedding entirely. Yet my potential absence from Taylor's was being treated as an unforgivable betrayal. Through it all, Jackson remained my rock. "You don't owe them your presence," he reminded me, "not after everything they've done." One evening, as we sat on our deck watching the sunset over the Denver skyline, he asked a question that helped clarify everything. If Taylor was getting married and your parents weren't your parents, if they were just people you knew, would you want to attend this wedding? The answer was immediate and obvious. No, absolutely not. "Then there's your answer," he said simply. "Don't go out of obligation to people who have never prioritized you." 2 weeks before the wedding, my therapist, Dr. Bennett, helped me draft a final message to my parents, explaining my decision in clear, non-accusatory terms. I expressed my love for them, but maintained that their behavior had been hurtful and that I needed to protect my own well-being. "Perhaps in time we can rebuild our relationship on healthier terms," I wrote, "but that will require acknowledgement of the patterns that have brought us to this point." I didn't expect a response, and for several days none came. Then, exactly 1 week before Taylor's wedding, everything changed. The call came at 11:30 on a Tuesday night. Jackson and I were already in bed, nearly asleep, when his phone lit up with my father's number. "Don't answer it," I mumbled, burrowing deeper under the covers. But Jackson, always the more diplomatic one, reached for the phone. "It's late, maybe it's an emergency," he said, answering with a cautious hello. Then his expression shifted from sleepy annoyance to alert concern. "Hold on," he said, putting the phone on speaker. "Ariana?" My father's voice sounded strange, strained and desperate in a way I had never heard before. "Ariana, are you there?" "I'm here, Dad," I replied. "You have to help us," he said without preamble. "Taylor's threatening to call off the wedding. She says it won't be perfect without you there, that people will talk if her own sister doesn't attend. She's hysterical, saying we've ruined everything by pushing you away." I sat up in bed, confused by this sudden reversal. For months, I had been the villain in their narrative, the selfish sister trying to ruin Taylor's happiness. Now, suddenly, my presence was essential to the perfect day. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully, "but I've been very clear about my decision and the reasons for it." "This isn't about all that anymore," my father continued urgently. "This is about saving your sister's wedding." "She's in crisis, Ariana. She needs you." In the background, I could hear my mother's voice, high-pitched and anxious. "Tell her we'll pay for her flights. Tell her we'll do anything." A memory surfaced, standing alone in my bridal suite, reading my mother's text that explained why they couldn't attend my wedding. Taylor had needed then too. "Dad," I said slowly, "I understand this is stressful, but I made my decision based on how I'd been treated by all of you, including Taylor. That hasn't changed." "Please," he begged, his voice cracking. "We've invested everything in this wedding, the house, our savings, even loans from friends. If Taylor cancels now, we'll lose it all." The truth emerged in his panic. This wasn't about wanting me there to share in Taylor's joy. It was about preserving their investment, avoiding embarrassment, and managing Taylor's latest emotional crisis. "I'm sorry," I repeated. "I can't be there." The call devolved quickly after that. My father's pleading turned to anger, then back to desperation. My mother got on the phone, sobbing about family loyalty and begging me to reconsider. "We're your parents," she cried. "After everything we've done for you, you owe us this much." Dr. Bennett's question from months ago echoed in my mind. What exactly do they think they've done for you that creates this obligation? "I don't owe you attendance at a wedding when you couldn't attend mine. I wish things were different, but they're not. I hope Taylor's day goes well, but I won't be there." I ended the call, despite their continued protests. Jackson looked at me with a mixture of pride and concern. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Actually, yes," I replied, surprised to find it was true. For the first time, I feel completely certain I'm doing the right thing. The calls continued over the next few days, growing increasingly desperate. My parents' tactics shifted hourly, from guilt to threats to tearful reminiscences about my childhood, all designed to soften my resolve. Taylor sent long, rambling texts that alternated between nasty accusations and sudden declarations of sisterly love. "You're the only sister I have. Don't you want to be part of the happiest day of my life?" I couldn't help but note the irony. No one had asked if they should be part of the happiest day of my life. 3 days before the wedding, the situation escalated dramatically. My mother called Jackson's phone at 3 in the morning, her voice slurred and barely coherent. "We've sacrificed everything," she sobbed. "Everything for Taylor's happiness, and now it's all falling apart because Ariana won't forgive us for one little mistake." In the background, I could hear my father arguing with someone. Taylor, I assumed. Their voices were raised in the kind of raw, ugly fight our family typically kept behind closed doors. "Mom, it's the middle of the night," I said, taking the phone from Jackson. "You need to get some rest. We can talk tomorrow." "There is no tomorrow," she wailed. "Taylor just fired another bridesmaid. The centerpieces are wrong. Your father's blood pressure is through the roof. Everything is ruined." The chaos continued for several minutes before I could end the call. As I set down the phone, I felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't love or even family obligation. This was dysfunction, plain and simple. The next morning, my grandmother called, my father's mother, a stern woman who rarely involved herself in family drama. "Ariana," she said without greeting, "I've just spent the night at your parents' house, and I've seen enough. This wedding has turned everyone into people I don't recognize." She sighed heavily before continuing. "I didn't know they missed your wedding for a beach trip. No one told me that part. I'm calling to say I think you're right to stay away from this mess." Her validation brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you, Grandma." "Your grandfather and I will be skipping this circus too," she added. "We've sent a gift, but told your father we're too old for such nonsense. Maybe when this is all over, you can come visit us in Florida instead." That afternoon, a final call came from Nate, Taylor's beleaguered fiancé. He sounded exhausting. "I just want you to know," he said quietly, "that I understand why you're not coming. This whole thing has gotten completely out of hand. But we're going through with it because canceling now would be even worse. I hope it works out for you, Nate. I really do." Taylor's not a bad person, he continued, almost to himself. She's just been allowed to be the center of everything. Your parents have created the situation as much as anyone. It was perhaps the most insightful thing anyone in my family's orbit had said in years. The day before the wedding, I received a joint voicemail from my parents. My father spoke first, his voice unnaturally controlled. "Ariana, this is your final chance to do the right thing. Taylor has agreed to forgive you if you attend tomorrow. We've arranged a ticket on the 6 a.m. flight. We expect to see you there." My mother added tearfully, "Honey, please." "We've spent over $80,000 on this wedding. We've taken loans we can barely afford. Your sister is devastated. If you ever loved this family, you'll be on that plane." $80,000. The figure stunned me. For a wedding that would last just one day, they had spent more than many people's annual salary, mortgaging their future, and now expected me to validate their choices by showing up and pretending all was well. I deleted the message without responding and turned off both our phones for the evening. Jackson and I ordered takeout and watched movies, deliberately creating a peaceful bubble while the storm raged hundreds of miles away. The next morning, Taylor's wedding day, I woke early, half expecting to feel guilt or doubt. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. While my family was undoubtedly in the midst of last-minute wedding chaos, I was free from the drama and manipulation that had defined our relationship for so long. I opened my laptop and composed a short message to Taylor, sending it to her personal email rather than her phone so she would find it after the wedding. "Taylor, I wish you happiness today and in your marriage. Our relationship has been complicated, and I haven't always felt valued or respected within our family. I hope someday we can build a healthier connection, but for now, I need to maintain the boundaries I've set. Take care of yourself, and congratulations on your wedding." It was simple, direct, and honest, qualities our family interactions had lacked for years. That evening, as Taylor's wedding reception would be in full swing, Jackson and I hosted a small dinner for the people who had truly supported us. Madison, who had flown in from Indianapolis, Jackson's parents, my friend Leah from work, and 2 couples from our neighborhood who had become close friends, gathered around the table. As we raised our glasses in a toast, I felt a profound gratitude for these relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. "To chosen family," Jackson said, his eyes meeting mine with understanding. "And to Ariana, the strongest person I know." Later, as our friends lingered over dessert, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Taylor's best friend, Samantha, calling in a panic. "Ariana, I know you didn't want to come, but it's really bad here. Taylor's had a complete meltdown. The photographer caught Nate looking unenthusiastic in some pictures. Your mom is crying in the bathroom, and your dad looks like he might pass out. Taylor's demanding that someone get you on the phone right now." In the background, I could hear the chaos, raised voices, and the muffled sounds of a celebration turned sour. 6 months ago, even 3 months ago, I might have felt responsible somehow. I might have rushed to fix the situation or at least felt guilty for not doing so. But now, listening to the familiar sounds of family drama playing out at what should have been a joyous occasion, I felt only sadness and resolution. "I'm sorry, Samantha," I said calmly. "I can't help with this. Please take care of yourself and maybe suggest to my parents that everyone take a breath and try to enjoy what's left of the evening." As I hung up, Jackson caught my eye from across the room, a question in his expression. I smiled reassuringly and rejoined our dinner party, leaving my family to manage the crisis they had created. The next morning, the barrage began, texts, voicemails, and emails detailing the wedding in excruciating detail. Each message seemed designed to maximize guilt and regret. According to various reports, Taylor had cried during the ceremony because her sister wasn't there. My mother had collapsed from stress and needed smelling salts. My father's blood pressure had spiked dangerously high. Guests had repeatedly asked where I was, forcing the family to concoct excuses. "You've ruined what should have been the perfect day," my mother wrote. I don't know if this family will ever recover." I read each message once, then deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say, no explanation that would satisfy them. In their narrative, I would always be the villain, the selfish daughter who abandoned her family in their time of need. But I knew the truth. I had simply finally said, "Not this time." 6 months after Taylor's wedding, life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. Jackson and I had fully embraced our life in Denver, making friends, advancing in our careers, and even discussing the possibility of starting a family of our own. The painful saga with my parents and sister had faded into the background, a chapter closed, if not completely healed. I maintained minimal contact with my parents, birthday cards, Christmas greetings, occasional brief emails, but I kept firm boundaries. No calls, no visits, no reopening of old wounds. They had made half-hearted attempts at reconciliation, always tinged with subtle guilt trips and lacking any real acknowledgement of their behavior. "We miss you," my mother would write. "Family should stick together no matter what." Never. "We understand why you were hurt. We're sorry for the pain we caused." I had come to accept that this was the most they could offer. My therapist, Dr. Bennett, helped me understand that some people are simply incapable of the self-reflection necessary for true change. "You can love them from a distance," she advised, "and build a life filled with people who value you properly." That was precisely what I was doing. Jackson's parents visited regularly, bringing warmth and genuine interest in our lives. Madison had connected me with her cousin who lived in Denver, leading to a new friendship that blossomed beautifully. My graphic design business was thriving, boasting a growing client list and increasingly prestigious projects. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, an unexpected letter arrived. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter, addressed in familiar handwriting. Taylor's handwriting. I stared at it for a long moment, my heart racing, before opening it, carefully, bracing myself for more accusations or manipulation. Instead, I found something entirely unexpected. "Dear Ariana," it began. "I'm not sure where to start. After a lot of therapy and some difficult self-examination, I'm beginning to understand how unfairly you've been treated in our family, by our parents, but especially by me." The letter continued for 4 pages, detailing specific instances where Taylor recognized she had been favored, where my needs had been ignored, and where she had deliberately taken center stage at my expense. She acknowledged the beach trip that had caused my parents to miss my wedding, calling it inexcusable, and admitting she had encouraged it, fully aware of what it meant. "I was jealous," she wrote. "You were getting married to someone wonderful who adored you. You had built this independent life that seemed so perfect. I wanted to prove I was still more important to Mom and Dad. It was childish and cruel, and I'm deeply ashamed." She described how her own marriage was struggling under the weight of expectations and the debt incurred for their so-called perfect day. "We started our life together owing thousands of dollars for flowers that wilted a week later and food no one even remembers eating. Meanwhile, you and Jackson seemed so happy, and you didn't need any of that extravagance." The letter concluded without any requests or expectations. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, how wrong it all was. If someday you're open to talking, I'd welcome the chance, but I understand completely if that day never comes." I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't just the apology that moved me, it was the specific acknowledgement of the dynamics that had caused so much pain. For the first time, someone in my family had actually seen me. Jackson found me on the couch, letter in hand, my eyes red from crying. "Bad news?" he asked, immediately, concern etched on his face. "No," I replied, handing him the letter. "Unexpected news." He read it carefully, his expression shifting from weariness to cautious optimism. "Wow," he said finally, "this seems genuine." "I think it is," I agreed, "but I'm not sure what to do with it." We discussed the letter late into the night. While Taylor's acknowledgement was healing, it didn't erase years of pain or guarantee changed behavior, and it said nothing about our parents, who had been the primary architects of the family's dysfunctional dynamics. After careful consideration, I decided to respond with a brief email, thanking Taylor for her letter and expressing my willingness for a tentative phone call, just the two of us, with no pressure or expectations. It would be a small first step, nothing more. The call, when it finally happened, was awkward yet hopeful. Taylor sounded different, more grounded, less dramatic. She explained that she and Nate had begun couples counseling shortly after their honeymoon. The counselor helped me see how much of our relationship stress stemmed from patterns I brought from our family, she shared. I started individual therapy too, and that's when I really began to understand what I had done to you over the years. She confirmed what I had long suspected. Our parents had always treated us differently, positioning her as the fragile, special one needing protection, while I was seen as the capable one expected to understand and accommodate. But that doesn't excuse my behavior, she added. I leaned into that role because it benefited me. I'm trying to be better now. As for our parents, Taylor's insights were illuminating. They're really struggling. The wedding debt is crushing them, and they're having trouble accepting that their perfect family narrative isn't reality. They talk about you all the time, but they still don't understand why you pulled away. In their minds, they've always been wonderful parents. It was both sad and validating to hear. Their inability to recognize their role in our arrangement wasn't surprising, but it confirmed that my decision to maintain distance had been necessary for my well-being. That single phone call didn't magically repair our relationship, but it opened a door. Over the following months, Taylor and I exchanged occasional messages and calls, slowly building a new connection based on honesty rather than the performative closeness our family had always pretended to have. Our parents remained on the periphery. Still unable or unwilling to acknowledge the patterns that had damaged our relationship, I maintained firm boundaries with them while leaving room for potential future healing, should they ever develop the capacity for genuine self-reflection. Then, a year after Taylor's wedding and 2 years after my own, Jackson and I discovered we were expecting a baby. As we shared the news with friends and extended family, I felt a fresh resolve forming within me. I want our child to grow up in a family where everyone is valued equally, I told Jackson one evening as we discussed nursery colors, where love isn't conditional on performance or compliance. That's exactly what we'll create, he promised, his hand resting gently on my still flat stomach. Our baby will never wonder if they're enough. I thought about my own childhood, the constant striving for attention that never came, the invisible rulebook that somehow only applied to me, the steady message that Taylor's needs would always come first. The clarity was sudden and complete. I would not allow those patterns to touch my child's life. My relationship with Taylor continued to evolve cautiously. When I shared my pregnancy news, her genuine happiness felt like another small step toward healing. She asked thoughtful questions about how I was feeling and offered help without trying to make the moment about herself, a noticeable change from her past behavior. I'd like to be a good aunt, she said hesitantly. If you'll let me, I'd like that too, I replied, and I meant it. As for my parents, I shared the news with them through a brief but warm email, including an ultrasound photo, but without any invitation for immediate involvement. Their response was predictably self-centered, filled with excitement about becoming grandparents, yet devoid of any acknowledgement regarding our strained relationship or how it might impact their role in my child's life. We can't wait to spoil our first grandbaby, my mother wrote, as if the past 2 years of minimal contact had never transpired. I chose not to respond to that particular comment. In time, if they showed a willingness to respect my boundaries and treat me with the same consideration they had always afforded Taylor, perhaps they could develop a relationship with my child. But I would not expose a new generation to the same patterns that had caused so much pain. One evening, as Jackson and I sat on our deck watching the sunset, he asked what I had learned from the entire experience with my family. I learned that love shouldn't hurt, that healthy families make room for everyone to be seen and valued, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say, "Not this time," to patterns that harm you. He squeezed my hand. "You're going to be an amazing mother." Looking out at the mountains in the distance, I felt a sense of peace that had been hard-won through painful choices and difficult boundaries. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, but I knew one thing with absolute certainty: the family we were creating would be built on equality, respect, and unconditional love. Every child would be celebrated for exactly who they were, not for what they could provide emotionally for the adults in their lives. My parents had missed my wedding for a beach trip with my sister. When they later begged me to attend her wedding, I had said, "Not this time." It wasn't about revenge or pettiness. It was about finally breaking a lifelong pattern of inequality and emotional manipulation. By refusing to participate in the dynamics that had hurt me repeatedly, I had claimed my worth and begun building a life where I was valued as I deserved to be. The journey had been painful, but the destination, this moment of peace and the promise of a healthier family of my own, made every difficult step worthwhile. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with family members who couldn't see how their behavior was hurting you? How did you handle it, and what did you learn from the experience? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content, and share it with anyone who might need to hear that it's okay to say "not this time" to harmful patterns. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the courage to prioritize your own well-being when faced with challenging family dynamics.